The high value target update came with some pretty significant changes to gunplay yet again, but instead of making gunfights feel random and somewhat unfair, these changes have made gunplay more deliberate while also requiring actual skill. And if you're struggling to adapt, then you're in the right place. Since the update dropped, I've been grinding non-stop to find the best builds for each weapon category, and in this video, I'll be giving you the best all-around build so you don't have to waste time figuring it out yourself. So let's get into it. It is important to note that some attachments have become way more useful after the update. So attachments like the lightened and long suppressors, the violet laser, and the aftermarket buffer have become way more viable because of the changes to recoil and bullet spread. So you will be seeing those attachments a lot in these builds. So let's get into the assault rifles, starting with the B36. In my opinion, the B36 is one of the best mid to long range assault rifles in the game, with a high bullet velocity, low recoil, and relatively low bullet spread, even after the update. For this build, I would recommend using the lightened suppressor, the extended barrel, the violet laser, the slim angled grip, lightweight ammo, and the aftermarket buffer. When you pair the lightened suppressor with the slim angled grip and the aftermarket buffer, the recoil is going to be significantly weaker, which makes engaging in mid to long range combat a lot easier. The time to kill on the B36 is a bit slower in close range combat, so it will be harder to keep up with weapons like the M4 and the M433, but if you're careful, it shouldn't be much of an issue. The next weapon is the NVO, which is a personal favorite of mine. On its own, it's not the best weapon because it has a weaker damage model, and its sway and spread penalties are pretty bad. But with the right build, you can significantly minimize the bullet spread and make this weapon a lot better in mid-range combat. For this build, you'll want the long suppressor, the light barrel, the violet laser, the ribbed vertical grip, and the aftermarket buffer. You could use the cryogenic barrel instead of the light barrel, but I would personally recommend using the light barrel because it'll give you a better improvement to spread overall. And when you pair the light barrel with the violet laser, you're gonna have pretty much no spread when you're engaging in mid to long range combat. But you do have to be careful with the sway and spread penalties because they can get pretty bad if you're moving around too much. The final AR is gonna be the M16, which is pretty much an exact copy of the DRS, but with better handling. And because of this, you can be way more aggressive with the M16 because the penalties aren't as drastic as they are on the DRS. For this build, you'll want the lightened suppressor, the extended barrel, the violet laser, the ribbed stubby, and the aftermarket buffer. The M16 is one of the most accurate weapons in the game, so you can easily engage in mid to long range gunfights without any issues. But with the increase to bullet spread in this update, you will miss more shots when you're spamming bursts. The violet laser will help, but it's still best to slow down and time your burst so you don't miss as many shots. Next up is the Carbines, starting with the SG553. With this update, the random recoil on the SG has been decreased from 43.3 degrees to 35.8 degrees, which makes the SG more viable in mid to long range combat yet again. For this build, you'll want the long suppressor, the extended barrel, the violet laser, the ribbed stubby, subsonic or lightweight ammo, and the aftermarket buffer. The subsonic ammo is going to reduce the spotting distance while firing, and it's going to reduce recoil. It is hard to tell if the subsonic ammo further reduces your spotting distance when paired with the suppressor, but it does seem to be a bit easier to move around while flanking in close range combat. The big downside is that it cuts your muzzle velocity in half, bringing the muzzle velocity down to 300 meters per second on the SG, which will make mid to long range engagements a lot harder. So if you want a better chance in mid-range scenarios, I would recommend using the lightweight ammo instead. The next carbine is the M4A1, which has also seen a pretty significant reduction to random recoil. And for this build, you'll want the lightened suppressor, the extended barrel, the 50mm blue laser, the ribbed vertical grip, and the aftermarket buffer. Usually I would use the violet laser, but because the M4 is so good in close range combat, I decided to use the blue laser to get as much potential as possible in close range scenarios. The final carbine is going to be the M417, which is pretty underrated in my opinion. It's pretty similar to the NVO, except it has better handling and the penalties aren't as drastic, so you can be pretty aggressive with this carbine. For this build, I would recommend the long suppressor, the extended barrel, the ribbed stubby, the 25 round mag, subsonic or lightweight ammo, and the aftermarket buffer. Once again, the subsonic ammo is going to bring your muzzle velocity down to 300 meters per second, so if you want to be more efficient in mid-range combat, I would recommend the lightweight ammo instead, but either way, this is going to be a really good option for close to mid-range combat. Next, we can talk about the SMGs, starting with the SGX, which is easily one of the best SMGs in the game and has quickly become one of my favorite weapons in BF6. For this build, you'll want the long suppressor, the extended barrel, the 50mW blue laser, the slim angled grip, the 30-round fast mag, and the aftermarket buffer. This SMG already has little to no recoil, but with this build, you're barely going to need to control it at all, which will help a lot in mid to long range combat. But because it has a weaker damage model and the update has increased bullet spread, you will need to be a bit more careful in those types of scenarios. If you wanted to avoid your laser being seen by enemy players, you could switch to the violet laser to get that benefit to ADS accuracy, but either way, this build is going to be a pretty good option for close range combat. The next SMG is going to be the MP5, which is also an incredibly good option for close to mid-range combat. For this build, you'll want the lightened suppressor, the extended barrel, the slim angled grip, the 30-round fast mag, synthetic tip ammo, and the aftermarket buffer. Just like the SGX, this build is going to have barely any recoil, but it will have some pretty noticeable spread, so you do have to burst fire at farther ranges. But with the synthetic tip ammo, you're going to get a 3 to 5 shot kill to the head up to 75 meters, which can significantly reduce your time to kill. The final SMG is going to be the MP7. While this SMG can be beaten out pretty easily by almost every other weapon in the game, there are a few things that make it a lot more viable. So for this build, I would recommend using the long suppressor, the cryogenic barrel, the 40-round mag, and synthetic tip ammo. Without synthetic tips, you're going to get a 5-shot kill to the head up to 75 meters. But with synthetic tip ammo, you can get a 4 to 5-shot kill to the head, which can significantly increase your time to kill at range. And even 1 to 2 shots to the head can significantly increase your time to kill in close range combat. And finally, we can talk about the LMGs, starting with the DRS. If you don't know already, this is easily one of the best weapons in the game, but the penalties are pretty harsh on this LMG, so you do have to play a bit slower. For this build, you'll want the long suppressor, the extended barrel, the violet laser, the slim angled grip, the 30-round fast mag, lightweight ammo, and the aftermarket buffer. With all these attachments, the penalties won't be as harsh, but you still need to be a bit careful when you're moving around. And with all the improvements to recoil, you can engage in mid to long range combat pretty easily, but you do need to be careful with higher zoom scopes because the recoil can feel pretty intense. Next is the L110, which is pretty similar to the B36, but because it's an LMG, it's going to have worse handling and hipfire accuracy. And to help negate these penalties, you'll want the long suppressor, the extended barrel, the violet laser, the slim angled grip, and hollow point ammo. This build is going to significantly reduce the recoil on the L110, which will help a lot more in mid to long range combat. This LMG does seem to have pretty bad bullet spread, so I do have the violet laser to help negate that, but you're still going to have to burst fire at farther ranges if you want to be as accurate as possible. I also decided to use the hollow point ammo because it gives you a 3 to 4 shot kill to the head up to 75 meters, which will make your time to kill significantly faster at range. This build is also going to be pretty useful in closer range combat, but because the weapon draw speed and the ADS time are pretty slow, you do have to be a bit careful. The final weapon is going to be the M123K, which is one of the most underrated weapons in the game. I find this LMG to be one of the most efficient weapons in mid to long range combat, with its high fire rate, relatively low recoil, and pretty low bullet spread. For this build, you'll want the long suppressor, the heavy extended barrel, the stippled stubby, and hollow point ammo. This build is going to help you be as accurate as possible in mid to long range combat. I personally went with the stippled stubby because the random recoil can be a bit hard to get used to in longer range combat, but you can get away with using the canted stubby or the ribbed vertical grip. And with the hollow point ammo, you can get a 3 to 4 shot kill to the head up to 75 meters. So that's going to be about it for the video. With these changes to gunplay, it's more important than ever to be deliberate in everything that you do. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, then consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel so you can keep up with the best tips, tricks, and breakdowns in Battlefield 6. And if you want to see any other weapons shown off in the future, then let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.